And we're live.
Good evening. Welcome to the January 27th, 2021 Henrietta Town Board meeting. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford.
Here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Councilmember Safranek. Here. Councilmember Bolsner. Here. Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a silent prayer followed by a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I'd like to make a motion to approve the January 13th, 2021 minutes.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Residents who are participating virtually and wish to speak during tonight's meeting will be asked to do so through Zoom by one of two means. If you're using Zoom on your computer or with an app, select the raise hand control. Or if you call into Zoom, press *9. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will enable you to talk. If you are watching this meeting on YouTube and wish to respond, please visit henrietta.org/wishyouwere-here for detailed instructions on how to connect via Zoom. For the deaf or hard of hearing, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. For anyone else, please reserve the Q&A for the deaf and hard of hearing only. We do not have any public hearings, presentations, or announcements. So can I get my first resolution?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 2-12, 2021 to acknowledge Eagle Scout Parker Hunt.
Second.
So for those who, are town board aficionados and recognize that we had done this previously, Parker was unfortunately caught in COVID in terms of his meeting. He never got to do his ceremony. He was back in town for college, so we just did it. And I decided to update since the old resolution talked about him being in high school, which he's no longer in high school. He's at college. So we just updated it and signed it, and we're going to present, and I presented at his Eagle Scout ceremony. So we're going to mail it to his parents. But congratulations, Parker. Good job. He happens to be in my son's troop, so I got to see him at the ceremony and at other stuff. So
Right. It's a great achievement to get that Eagle Scout. So congratulations, Parker.
Get well soon.
any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-13, 2021 to authorize bills payable for January 15th, 2021 through today.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz, I have Resolution 2-14, 2021 to authorize the purchase of two historic properties known as the Good Shepherd Church at 3286 East Henrietta Road and the Burger Farmhouse at 3306 East Henrietta Road.
Seconded.
Discussion?
Just want to mention again that, I do have some concerns. I will be voting for this, but I do, have concerns about the parking, and I hope everything goes well. I had talked to director at Parks and Rec. She was comfortable with it, so.
Good. We, again, in talking with the town, if you look at the plan, they did push the east boundary further out so that we would be able to put handicap spaces in directly behind the church if we ever switch to where we have our own parking lot. Chris Hauser from engineering drew up spaces, a couple different layouts that could potentially work. I should have checked beforehand. I don't remember what the largest number of spaces was, but it was a decent amount. Certainly not, in other words, people would either have to carpool or shuttle from the town facilities, over here, if they were, well, let's put it this way, that parking would work fine during COVID. But, once COVID's gone and that building can go to full capacity, if we're not able to use the school district parking lot for some reason, then, we would have to do something from a shuttling standpoint. But again, I don't see an issue. They just did not want to tie their hands as to what they do with that property as they develop it, which I can understand. But put it this way, with the budget and especially the hit and the cost due to COVID, I think their plans are being put off for some number of years. So the other thing I will mention is with some of the stuff going on, such as the changes that happened at El Siegel Center and the Dome Arena being used as a point of dispensing for the vaccine. We are short on election sites. So we're going to look at, can we get a wheelchair access ramp into the church in time in order to use this as a voting district or a polling location instead of the Dome. So the good news is it's just plenty big. Like I said, the only issue right now is it's not wheelchair accessible. There is a chair glide lift to get someone up the stairs, but obviously that's not the best solution, because the person has to get out of the wheelchair, get into the chair glide, lift up, then get back into the chair. And so when we were looking at it with the facilities and grounds folks, the northeast entrance comes in at the floor level of the main portion of the church. And so we would basically build a ramp off of that to the east, to the parking lot back in the east, which is again where currently the school district parking lot is. And if we ever built our own, that would become our handicap access.
Gotcha.
Parking, so.
Makes sense.
As you may have also seen, our facilities folks took a look at the building. They're in good shape. There was some question. We're probably going to see if we can get one of our heating consultants who's working with us on other stuff right now, if he could take a quick look at it. It's possible so the old furnace was removed. There is a new furnace. We're not certain if it's full capacity. If it's not, we have the furnaces that we removed from that we swapped out from the rec center. We switched them with the air conditioned unit.
Right.
So we could potentially put that there, or if we wanted this to have air conditioning capability, we could potentially put that there as well. So the old ductwork from the old furnace does still appear to be there. We're just not sure what the full capacity is for the heating, but it's certainly the capacity that there is in there now is enough to keep the building from freezing. The question is whether it would be like this room. So like I said, that's some of what we're looking at, but Any other questions?
What's the timing and flow of this? So we're authorizing the transfer for $1 from the school district to us, but
So
it still needs to be subdivided and.
correct. So basically, the next step, if this is approved, then what we would do is we would start the subdivision process. There's currently, I think, 5 parcels out the other end of the process. There will be 2 parcels. One is ours and one is the school district's. So we will have to have, a land surveyor come in and establish the boundaries. I've described them in writing, and we purposefully used visually identifiable locations so that it's easy for the surveyor to do what we agreed upon. But the idea is they'll mark all the corners, and then representatives from both the town and the school district will go there to make sure that it's what we agreed upon. They'll then drop the new meets and bounds. It'll have to be filed at the clerks. We'll have to go through I assume there was recently a title search, but Lisa would probably know the process better in terms of what, do we have to update that in terms of,
have somebody go through and they'll have to just make sure there's no liens on it and all of encumbrances on it. Well, Don would know that too.
right? So the second thing is, the idea is we would, what we're approving is a sales contract, which basically says we're going to buy it. And then, like I said, we've got a bunch of steps to get to that point. And then basically at the same time, we were going to set up a lease agreement so that we can start working on the facility. It's up to us whether we want to allow us to make, in other words, what we want to put on the limit in terms of substantial changes is obviously if the sale somehow falls through, any real improvements to the real property stay with the property. But when I look at it, I'm talking like the wheelchair ramp. We're not talking a huge dollar amount investment. And like I said, I think it would be beneficial to get that done as soon as possible because I think it's going to take some time, and having that ready for when, so that we could use this as a polling site, I think would be a good idea.
And they're going to, I would imagine, require us to have insurance on it as well, if we're going to make any change or have any work happening in there.
I'm sure they would, but let's put it this way. We would require that.
Right.
We don't want to be working on anything that we don't
Right.
have insurance on. So that's why we wanted to have the sales contract in place, is so that we can, in addition to the lease agreement, so that we can essentially work on the property as if it were ours, even though it's not ours quite yet.
So this resolution also covers the lease arrangement?
It does.
Okay.
The lease is also for $1.
Oh, okay, great.
So I'm going to have to, we've got $1 pinned to Craig's door. I'll have to come up with a second $1. So,
The plan would be eventually put a kitchen in there, right? If it also, so for,
yeah, I mean, we've talked about that. I'd like to get inside and lay the stuff out and
Right.
figure that out. But yes, that was one of the things we had
yeah,
discussed.
like the other cabin, like the other
Yep.
cabins, because if you're going to have an event there. Okay.
And one of the things I would also want to take a look at too is, is there an ability to add a lift? There are lifts that can be installed after the fact so that the downstairs could later become used. I wouldn't do that up front, but the point is if we continue to need additional space, that is a possibility down the road. I bring that up because I'd want to plan where we might put it so that we don't use that space for something else. But that way, the lower level could be handicap accessible as well.
And that lower level is a big space.
It is.
It's a nice space down there too. I mean, you could almost be do it as 2 rentals, one at the
Exactly.
top, or one at the top, one at the bottom.
And one of the other things I'll mention is that, again, this part, I don't know that we'll do before we actually take ownership, but at some point, we're going to rework the bathrooms. Because the bathrooms right now, they're insufficient in number and they're insufficient in size. The plan is just to make a number of unisex stalls, at least one of which will be fully handicap accessible. We'll make as many of them HCA compliant if the space allowing, but because of the layout of the ground floor, I know when we were over there looking, I measured it out, we can absolutely do one. The second one's going to be close. So that's what we're looking at. And then there would be additional ones in the basement potentially at some point.
It's a really nice space. It's nice that it's going to be used for something, so.
And I know our historic site committee and our town historian are very excited
Very
that it's
excited.
going to stay alive. And
Got a bunch of texts today about it.
any other questions? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford, Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 2-15, 2021, to declare intent to be lead agency for seeker review of proposed plus or minus 150 unit multifamily senior housing located at the southwestern portion of the Marketplace Mall property on Miracle Mile Drive in a commercial B1 zone district with a mixed-use redevelopment area overlay district.
Second. So I've been having discussions with Cornerstone. Again, they're doing the not just affordable housing, but some of the units are going to be rent subsidized. And so they will, they're going through New York State. So we put together an initial pilot agreement, then to go out to the state to make sure the state's good with it. If you'll remember from when we were trying to do, I just lost what it was called, Heritage Gables. To qualify under the state, it has to be on the available to public transit. Well, of course, Marketplace Mall happens to be our public transit hub in Henrietta, so it works out
Right.
perfectly there.
Right.
You know, this will hopefully, along with the URMC Orthopedic Center, will further help revitalize the mall, because if you've been in the mall, there's a lot of vacancies right now. Of course, there's a lot of retail and restaurants closing up in a lot of places.
Yep.
But especially in the mall. So having 150 units essentially attached to the mall should help a bunch. Questions, comments?
Just happy to hear somebody's finally building some senior housing that might be affordable.
Yep.
And it would make it really easy for seniors to get out and get to the shopping and stuff. That's a
Very
really good thing
convenient.
also.
Agreed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 2-16, 2021, to authorize additional professional services to Mahar Engineering, PLLC, for the architectural and structural design of a 40-foot by 44-foot pole barn for the Department of Public Works.
Second.
So if you remember, we went out to bid for the project for the sewer garage, which is a much bigger project. And that one's going to be going out later to bids for construction. Mahar Engineering was the winner of the bids for the engineering portion. When we decided to relocate the sewer garage, the problem with is where we were putting it in the berm, it ended up being widened to 70 feet, which pushed it too far to the south into the yard, the DPW yard. It would have meant we wouldn't have been able to have room to attach the plows. which obviously is problematic. So we decided to move it to where the old DPW garage is and actually shift it even further to the east than that, so that it's right up against, in fact, its eastern wall will become the retaining wall for the, what's often referred to as the rec barn. It's the barn structure there that they store a lot of the equipment for the rec, football programs, baseball programs, stuff like that. But in doing that, when we take out that old garage, that's currently being used by the facilities and the grounds folks, so we needed to relocate. So what we're gonna do is build basically a pole barn. Construction will be very similar to what, in fact, our town staff is going to build it. It's going to be very similar to what was built over the bocce court, only it'll have walls. But it's basically pre-engineered trusses on pole bar construction and then walls. So the only part we'll probably farm out the foundation work, but otherwise, and the reason there's some foundation is because to make it match the other building, we're going to use a block wall for the lower portion. That way it also matches the DPW, because when you're pulling into town, as you're coming up Columbus Drive, these are going to be the first two buildings you see. So we want them to look nice and match the DPW building. But otherwise, basically they're both being built in a pole barn type construction, which basically means there's large footers supporting most of the weight, and then there's a smaller foundation holding up the block wall. Any questions on that? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 2-17, 2021, to award the Cabin Road Culvert Installation Project bid to CP Ward Incorporated.
Second.
So again, this project will provide a second entrance into Memorial Park. Very important if we ever have an emergency situation during our 4th of July celebration when the roads are full and people are walking all around. So to have a second entrance and exit is a big deal. And the other thing this will do then is we'll be able to remove that temporary, I can't even call it a culvert, between the senior center and the rec center. So what'll happen, you'll still be able to interconnect. You go out the back of the rec center to Cabin Road and then over to, out the back of the senior center over to Cabin Road, over to the rec center and the library. So it'll provide a nice interconnect.
Yep.
Any questions?
Just a big difference between the bids, so glad to see that.
Yeah, so CP Ward is doing another project very similar around the same time. And so they believed that they could achieve some economies of scale, and that's how they were able to get their bid price below. If you look, the other three bid prices were very closely grouped.
Right.
This one was significantly lower, and it's because they just happen to have something else almost identical. So they're basically going to do our work and then go to the other one and do
It's
their
great
work.
for us. Glad to
Yep.
see it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-18, 2021, to approve the Remote Solar One LLC pilot agreement.
Second.
So as I was saying before the meeting, this was a long drawn out effort because it involves the town, the school district, the county, and the solar developer, well, and the property owners. So I guess technically five entities. And I'll also remind people that because Town Attorney Don Young has done work with Delaware River Solar, previously he conflicted himself out, so we've been using Lou Marin as our town council on this project. So Lou has shepherded it through all the processes, and we're finally ready to go. Any questions?
Happy to see it moving forward. I think this is a great project for the town and for the family.
Agreed.
Any idea on how long it would take?
They want to be operational by the end of the year, if I remember.
That's great. And if I remember correctly, I think the benefit to the homeowners that sign on, it might be maybe 12 to 1,500 homes or so, if I remember that correctly.
In terms of how many it can supply?
Yeah.
It-
That's good.
It's 5 megawatts.
It's been a long time.
If you wish to speak, coming up to the. Yep.
I was just going to confirm.
Do me a favor and speak at the microphone so that the town clerk can hear you.
Evening, everyone. Dan Cavatello with Delaware River Solar. Good to see you, Don. That is correct. It can power approximately about 1,200 to maybe 1,500 homes, depending on how much energy people use.
Okay.
And subscribers can just sign up to the solar farm, just like they'll pay for the power just like they do today.
Uh-huh.
And they should receive up to a 10% discount on their power, guaranteed for 20 years.
That'd be great for our residents.
So who do they sign up with again?
They would sign up with Delaware River Solar.
Okay.
And they can just go right to that website, DelawareRiverSolar.com, to do that. We hope to be done definitely by the end of the year.
Okay.
Hopefully to start construction sometime around between May and August of this year.
Great.
So for those who don't remember the way we wrote the Remelts and Delaware River Solar are essentially being our guinea pigs of our new regulations. And one of the things we decided to do, because there was all this discussion as to how do I draw the lines in terms of the pilot has to be under its own, that parcel that has a pilot has to be its own parcel. So what we decided to do is we would define the parcel by the fence boundaries. Everything inside the fence for the solar array would be part of that parcel, everything outside. So what they're gonna, have to go do is go site where this is gonna be, figure out where everything's gonna be, and then when it's all done, essentially, they will parcel that out. They're gonna have to create a soil map because the rest of it is still a working farm. And so, but then that parcel will be by itself, and the rest of the parcels, the rest of the farm will still be essentially paying taxes under the agricultural, assuming he has to continue. One of the things we did is while the solar arrays are in place, he has to have a easement that the land can only be used for agriculture. So Charlie has, and Sarah have agreed to do that. And so, like I said, that there's still there's a bunch of steps before they can actually start installing the solar arrays, but it's been great having these guys as effectively partners in testing out our new regulations. And we actually have to still finish the GEIS for those to get those in place.
Okay.
But they've essentially signed on to them. That's why, if you remember, instead of it being in our town code,
Right.
it's like 15 or 25 conditions on their special use permit.
Right.
But, the good thing is, as we discovered, as we were working on this stuff, and we figured out, with their help, some stuff that worked and some stuff that didn't.
Okay.
So we won't have to change the code,
That's great.
clean it up afterwards. It's going to go in the proper form. So again, thank you to Delaware River Solar and Namaste and the Remalts.
Thanks for answering our questions.
Sure thing.
Appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you for being here.
Yeah, and we appreciate all the help that the town's provided to date. And it's being from Rochester, it's great to see another solar farm just around the corner
It's exciting.
in the county here. So
Yep.
thanks again, everyone.
Yep.
Great.
You
Thank
bet. Thank you. Any further questions? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-19, 2021, to authorize the purchase of a truck lift for the general service garage.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-20, 2021 to authorize the purchase of a new replacement equipment transport trailer.
Second. Any discussion?
Just happy to see it's local. Being purchased local.
Right. And super local, right here in town,
Yes.
not just
The
the
road,
Rochester
yeah.
area. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-21, 2021, to authorize the purchase of a new wide area mower and surplus the former wide area mower.
Second.
Any discussion?
Once again, glad to see it was purchased locally in town.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 2-22, 2021 to authorize the purchase of a new replacement dump truck with plow equipment.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll say it again. Happy to see that we're purchasing it here locally.
You know, based on town board feedback, and especially from Councilmember Stafford, I know Chuck has been working to find local solutions whenever he can.
And it feels like Christmas, all these presents
does.
we're buying today.
Well, and all of them, again, all of them are in Henrietta, so. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-23, 2021, to declare an item surplus material from the Parks and Recreation Department.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz, I have Resolution 2-24, 2021, to appoint Patrick Irving to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Seconded.
So I spoke to Patrick yesterday to give him the good news. He was very excited, looking forward to get going. And I put him in contact with the current board. They've already been exchanging emails, so.
That's great.
Well, welcome aboard, Patrick. Thank you for joining.
And I'd like to just thank everybody else who applied for it, that, you know,
Yes.
we had many great candidates. And I'm sure there's something in town we'll have for them sooner or later.
Yeah, in fact, a couple of them are already volunteered to help out with events and or committees, so.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have Resolution number 2-25, 2021 to appoint Stacy B. Killings to the Youth Board.
Second. So again, I spoke to Stacy. She was very excited to get going. Her resume I don't think could have been a better fit, not just resume, but personality as well. I think she's going to be a phenomenal addition to the youth board. Very excited to have her on board.
Welcome aboard, Stacy. Thank you for joining the team.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-26, 2021, to make appropriate budget transfers per the 2020 adopted budget.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 2-27, 2021. Whereas the Canandaigua National Bank and Trust has donated $500 to the Henrietta Public Library, and whereas a check in the amount of $500 was received by the library director, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks Canandaigua National Bank and Trust for their generosity.
Second.
Any discussion? Obviously, thank you again. Very much appreciated. Love the support that our library gets. Hearing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-28, 2021. Whereas Friends and Foundation of the Rochester Public Library has donated $1,500 to the Henrietta Public Library, and whereas a check in the amount of $1,500 was received by the library director, therefore be it resolved that the town board acknowledges this donation and thanks the Friends and Foundation of the Rochester Public Library for its generosity.
Second.
So again, thanks for all the support for the library. And I'm going to sound like Mike because I think we've got a third one coming. You know, it's great to see, helps our library put on events, acquire additional material, and do, you know, a number of great programs that I know have been very much appreciated, especially during the time of COVID. They've gotten very creative in their ability to do them, even during some of the most shut down times of the pandemic. So
It does feel like Christmas in January.
any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Fellow board members, I have Resolution 2-29, 2021, whereas Janice M. Butts has donated $125 to the Henrietta Public Library for adult large print historic fiction material, and whereas a check in the amount of $125 has been received by the library director, therefore be resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks Janice M. Butts for her generosity.
Seconded.
Again, make it the trifecta. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And going back to Millie's earlier statement, it's sort of like with my kids, right? Early on, the Christmas presents were trucks. Well, now all they want is cash. So.
And I believe that Janice has donated in the past to the large print collection. So, you know, it's appreciate the ongoing generosity, particularly for that specific type of material to help individuals access reading material that's new and different and interesting to those who need it.
Yeah, like me.
I'm getting there, Rob.
Thank you very much.
Anything further? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 2-30, 2021, to accept seeker determination and issue a negative declaration for the Riverton Parcel E project on Scottsville West Henrietta Road.
Second. So to give a full updates as we've been going along. So we've had a lot of discussions with the county. And in the traffic study, as you saw, you know,
One intersection.
right, specifically the Scottsville West Henrietta Road intersection with East River Road was particularly problematic. It's actually, even without this project, during non-COVID times was problematic. I found out where the thing, remember we were looking at it, not only was there confusion of letter grades, there were two different tables. So the first table that still had all the bad grades, that still had the Fs in there, that was if they just put in stop signs. There was a later table, and that I shared that out to you guys, and it should be attached to this in the agenda, that had the stop sign with the southbound right turn lane. As I mentioned in the workshop, the reason that helps so much is because in the evening traffic, peak traffic times, there's a lot of traffic that is turning right. And if they're stacked with the traffic that is going straight through southbound, then that delays how much, you know, with an always stop, only one of those stop signs can go at a time, and it increases everybody's wait time. By adding the southbound right turn lane in the PM peak time, the cars going straight and the cars turning right can go through that stop sign at the same time. So it essentially doubles the throughput there, which also shortens the cycle time for the other two directions. So it's, you know, you'll still have an E, but there, if I remember correctly, there's no more Fs. They go away. So I then had a bunch of discussions with the county because we're currently in the process of finalizing the intermunicipal agreement between us with respect to the corridor, the East River Road corridor project. And the big question came in, so the majority of the funds being collected through that seeker mitigation process is for the general improvements in the corridor from, it's predominantly intersections, although there's a couple areas in between intersections that are also getting improvement, but from Erie Station Road up to Jefferson Road. And, you know, one of the things that comes in though is sometimes, as this is being a perfect example, the development creates a requirement for some local mitigation that for the development not to have a significant adverse impact, some mitigation has to occur to stop that from occurring. The problem then comes in if you put that burden on the developer, plus the full $800 per trip burden on the developer, it can become too great a burden for the developer. And so we then tried to look at how we balance that, because again, they're still putting traffic onto the rest of the corridor. So there still needs to be something that goes to those general improvements. And so what we finally decided on is that you take the amount of their local improvements, in this case, $90,000, and half of that gets credited towards what they owe under the seeker mitigation plan. So if you take their 120 trips and you multiply it by the $800, that's $96,000. So if I subtract out the 45, that means they'll still put an additional $51,000 into the general contribution. So their total contribution is going to be $141,000. Now, they had the choice of either doing the work themselves on the local improvements and contributing the 51,000 to the general, or just writing a check for 141,000 to the whole fund, and the fund would then pay to have the local improvements done. They opted to go the second route. I will note that in addition to that 141,000, they are still going to spend about $45,000 to $50,000 of their money themselves to put in the sidewalks along Moore Road, connecting from, I think it's Egret Road up to Scottsville West Henrietta Road. So we got, after we completed that discussion as to how we were going to work the formula, I sent the notice to the developers that this is what we were looking to do. They thought, they basically agreed to it. They sent us a letter of commitment. And so that's what you find in the seeker statement. So, you know, again, it's going to improve the overall traffic flow there. And traffic was not the only negative impact, but it was certainly the most significant, because again, that intersection in the one direction pre-COVID was failing already. So improving it will be great. I will note, however, that the county, even though we'll do the widening, the shoulder widening to put the turn lane in sooner, the stop signs, the other two stop signs won't go in until the traffic warrants it, because again, right now, pre-COVID, that intersection isn't, or excuse me, during COVID, that intersection isn't an issue. And obviously it's going to be a while before any traffic is added from the apartment complex. But basically, as soon as the traffic picks up, the county will put in those stop signs, and they'll continue to monitor it. They have committed that if it ever, the traffic continues to grow to the point where stop signs aren't enough, they will signalize it. So Jim Pond, who's the director for MCDOT, they did agree that if it gets to that point, they will signalize it. So so that's really good news, because again, it helps out the rest of the folks who come in eastbound off of Scottsville West Henrietta Road. The other things mentioned in the seeker, the four things that, you know, this board had identified as potential adverse impacts that needed mitigation. There was, you know, a desire to preserve some of the open space. This is one of the last open areas in the this portion of Riverton. They agreed to place an easement on a roughly 6-acre portion of land in the middle of development. That basically prohibits development except in conjunction with the building of an elementary school. So as you remember, there's a parcel just to the north of that stretch that is owned by the school district. It was donated to the school district way back when Riverton was created, with the intention that it could someday become a elementary school. The problem is the requirement for acreage for a elementary school site went up since that was originally donated. That was around just under 10 acres. The requirement now is 12 acres, although the school district prefers 15. So if you add this acreage to there, they're just under 16 acres. So if they ever decided to put an elementary school in Riverton, there's now a location with sufficient size to go there. The other thing we talked about is the character of the adjacent neighborhood. You know, in terms of multifamily apartments, as far as Riverton as a whole, it's absolutely a part of that. There's a bunch of other ones, but there are single family homes in an R115 district that are just to the south of here, as well as across the street. And so in the ones that have the adjoining property lines, they have agreed to shift the buildings some and add additional screening, so that essentially there'll be effectively a green wall between the apartment complex and the existing parcels. So that one will be noting in the resolution. We note that to the planning board, because ultimately it's a planning board who will put that together and make sure that they've met this requirement. But again, they did agree to do that. And then as we talked about with pedestrian traffic, one of the things, Riverton itself was built with pedestrian and cyclist traffic in mind. And so to be able to connect some of these missing segments across their property, the fronts of their property, is to me an important aspect. So again, they'll be putting in the sidewalk that ties the neighborhoods to the sidewalks from the neighborhoods to the south up to the trails and the commercial or the retail area like Miller's Pharmacy, as well as the Riverton Association clubhouse and swimming pool in that area. And that ties into the whole trail network. So once you get there, you can go down any of the trails in Riverton. So I think that's an important connection. They're not only going to connect it along Moore, but they're going to connect it along Scottsville West Senator Road across the front of their property. There was some question about a resident had asked if they could improve the crosswalk at the intersection of Erie Station and Road and East River Road. Improvements to that intersection were actually placed on Howlett Acres. They haven't completed them yet, but those are supposed to be done this year. And included in that, when we review those, we'll make sure that I'm pretty sure that it included an upgraded crosswalk, but we will make sure. My deputy town supervisor's here listening, and he will certainly make sure that that's included in whatever goes in there. So, so like I said, it's not going on this developer because it's being placed on it was already placed on as a mitigation for Howlett Acres. And so those were the 4 items, and you know, the good thing is the developer was willing to mitigate them all. So, questions?
I was very concerned with the distance between the new buildings and the existing residents, and happy to hear that they moved them a little bit, and also that they're going to put a barrier, you know, some kind. You know, I want to make sure that that's very clear with them, that with the developer, that there has to be some kind of barrier between the existing places. And happy to hear the county looked into the traffic.
A couple other notes that came up during the public discussions. There was discussion of a bald eagles environment. The bald eagle nest is pretty much on the far side of Riverton. It's about as far away from here as you can possibly get and still be in Riverton. So DEC determined that was not an issue. It gets flagged because they put like a 1 mile radius around the nest. So we're at the edge of that radius, but it's not an issue. As far as the historic houses, the boundary for that is 100 feet. So one of the things we'll also make sure the planning board's aware of that. They have the ability to cut that back some, but we are going to ask that they try to preserve as close to the 100-foot as they possibly can. If you look at the layout, most of it does meet that requirement. There was one corner of the building that stuck over by like 3 feet.
Right.
But the nice thing is, you know, there's no parking lots back there. It's the back sides of the garden apartments. But again, those will remain 100 feet from the edge of any historic property. Or like I said, the one little area might drop to 97. Was there any other issues? I'm trying to remember what else was brought up on.
I asked clarification on the number of parking spots, and they said, dude,
yes,
I didn't get any response yet.
So that's going to be up to the planning board as to whether right now they've effectively got 2 spaces per apartment because they have a garage space and a driving space. I believe it's required 2.5 spaces. I think is what code calls for. I don't know that that's right, but I know it was more than 2. And so the point is then they'll either have to find spaces to have off-street parking spaces, essentially along their interior road for additional spaces, or they'll have to go to the zoning board of appeals and get a variance to reduce the number of parking spaces. One of the things that we'll make very clear, there will not be parking on any of the roads that, in other words, if they want to have parking on their private road, that's okay, as long as they're not obstructing emergency vehicles, but there will not be parking on Scottsville Western Unit Road or Moore Road. But like I said, that's actually in the planning board's domain, not ours. But
Was there any land bank parking in this project?
I didn't see any land bank parking, no. They do have space to do that around their clubhouse. One of the other things that I'm trying to get them to do is actually swap. Right now, the clubhouse is on the western portion. I'd like to have them swap it with one of the buildings that's on the eastern portion. And the reason being that would allow us to slide Building 6 further away from East River Road, because there are some existing homes on East River Road. They're more than 100 feet, but I'd still like to pull them back if possible. They had the bank, there was complications with the bank, but I've basically offered to write a letter or do whatever can to possible. So again, I'm going to make, I basically have brought that, we'll bring that to the attention of the planning board to consider that and see if they can do something along those lines. But in terms of available space to do some land bank parking around that clubhouse, there is.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
I do have a hand raised in our virtual audience if you're ready for them.
We are.
Okay, I have Bridget and Michael Andre here. Give me just a second, guys. There you are.
Here I am. Thank you very much. So we are the residents who live on East River Road, not directly touching the majority of the property, but a portion of our land is on. We just wanted to say we are thrilled to hear that the buildings will be shifting. And we just wanted to say thank you for all of your efforts, and we appreciate everything to make that happen. And we are very grateful that you are listening to us. So thank you again.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for participating and giving us the feedback.
Absolutely.
Glad to hear you're happy. That's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Always good to hear somebody's happy.
Anybody else online?
That's all I have.
Any further discussion?
I just wanted to also say that I appreciate all the work that you put into this, all the detailed thought to make sure that this happened. And particularly with the concerns around that particular intersection, that you were able to find a way to mitigate that. So appreciate that.
And again, thanks to Jim Pond, who worked with me constantly. We had a lot of back and forth to try to figure out how to get that done in a way that made sense for the county, the town, the developer, and everybody in the neighborhood. Because again, we wanted to improve the performance there. We didn't just want the new traffic to have an equal performance. We wanted it to the intersection have a better performance even with the new traffic. So we were able to find, well, when I say we, they're the traffic folks. I just helped with the IMA portion of it, so. Hearing nothing further, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford, Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 2-31, 2021. to approve the special use permit application number 2020-23 for Riverton Parcel E, Park Grove Realty, to construct a plus or minus 120 unit multifamily community.
Second.
And by the way, the reason it's a plus or minus 120 unit, it's possible, depending on how the planning board layout ends up, that they might have to subtract 1 or 2 units. Because again, when they fit all the stuff in the parameters necessary, as they shift the stuff around, they may have to truncate one of the buildings. So it's still arguably plus, well, it won't be plus, it won't go over 120 units. Discussion. Obviously, it's what we've just been talking about. So again, as you'll notice here, all the things we just talked about under the seeker, basically it goes into the stuff about what they promised to do, and basically makes it a requirement of their special use permit. I will note that they plan to pay the $141,000 seeker mitigation before the building permit is issued. In fact, I think they're doing it soon. The sidewalk will be constructed at the same time that their buildings are being constructed, and we've told them that essentially they won't get a certificate of occupancy until the easement for the school district is in place and until the sidewalk's in place. So, but again, they're going to be doing that all as part of their main construction process, so that won't be an issue. And it also has in there the visual buffer, and as I mentioned, the sidewalk. Anything else? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. And that concludes our resolutions. Do we have any discussion items from the board or from the public?
Want my committee?
We'll get to that in a second. I have not exactly a discussion item, but I would like to potentially adjourn to a executive session at the end of this, just to go over it's information. What's the one about pertaining to a particular person's employment?
The hiring or employment of a particular person.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that came up in the last few days. And I just wanted we just wanted to brief you guys. So,
Okay.
So like I said, we'll plan to adjourn to executive session at the end. And the same, like we do typically, we'll go right from the executive session to adjourning. So we'll be able to end the broadcast at that point. Since there's no other discussion items, committee reports.
Okay. I have some committee report from the Parks and Recreation Department that Pam shared with me today, that we were the recipient of the Genesee Valley Recreation and Parks Society 2020 Special Event Award for our reverse parade, which is a great, I mean, it's nice to hear that somebody, that they really liked it. And
Bravo.
That was a great event. So also at the senior center, the canopy over the sidewalk is complete. The staff was able to benefit from the additional shelter today during the grab and go pickup. Progress is being made on the three-season room at the senior center. The town staff is doing a lot of the work ourselves. Well, not myself, the town staff itself. At the senior center, the senior chair exercise will resume on Monday and Wednesdays, 10 to 10:45, beginning February 1st. It's going to be temporarily moved to the rec center, but you got to pre-register. You can call 334-4030 for sign up. I'm sorry, 334-4030. We have an upcoming Food Link event Thursday, February 11th. Registration is now open. Red Cross will hold the blood drive at the Recreation Center on Saturday, January 30th. Registration is nearly full. The next one after that will be February 20th. Appointments are preferred. Registration is now open for the new this year's version of the Valentine's Day celebration on Saturday, February 13th. The event's going to be called Everything Hearts Trail. Participants do crafts, play games, receive cookies, it's decorate, and kits are available to go home if you do not want to attend in person. So, and then you can check that out online with the Parks and Rec. And then we got the last chance to recycle your Christmas tree to January 31st. Just drop it, just touchless drop off behind the barn at Tinker. That's
Great.
all. That's it.
Any other boards?
Library, I would say just keep checking the website to see all the events that they have there. And Historical Site Committee met, but we just talked a bunch, some of the things going on they're really excited about finally finishing up with the church and the schoolhouse, or the church and the burger house. And they were also really excited about the potential of the park at the corner there, so.
Yeah, so work on the Chapman Park is what it's tentatively called. It's the location, the southeast corner of Erie Station Road and West Henrietta Road. Formerly at that site was Three Sisters Ice Cream. Ann Stevens and Bill Shattuck have basically they're purchasing the land, and they're going to make a bunch of improvements and then sell the land to us with the improvements, but they're basically going to only charge us what they originally purchased the land for in the first place. So they're essentially donating all the improvements. We're looking at some initial plan. So it's going to celebrate the historic West Hamlet. So the plan is to probably take the front wall off of the Three Sisters ice cream shop and essentially turn it into a kind of a three-sided shelter that has displays inside of the historic properties from the West Hamlet. A bunch of historic pictures and other information like that. Picnic tables, chess table, a small swing set. That way, if families are eating, anyone with kids will tell you it's really helpful to have a swing set there. And then we're looking at potentially a fountain in the center, trying to do something different than our other parks. And then like a stone dust path around through it. So they've done some really nice initial layout, and we'll be bringing more of that by as time goes on, but very much appreciative. It's funny because we always talk about if you want to see something stay empty, buy it. They did it, right? So kudos to Ann and Bill, and like I said, I look forward. I know our historic site committee and our town historian are very excited to have essentially a historic park or park celebrating history. So looking forward to that one.
Yes, and in reference to the Historic Site Committee, there is one opening on the committee. If you're interested to get your resume in, I think it's February 11th. Am I correct? Yes, I'm getting a shake. Yes.
So we've been receiving a number of good applications, so
We have
it's going to
got
be
some great
another,
ones.
good problem to have. Picking, difficult but good problem is picking someone from amongst the many qualified people. Others?
Yes, I have one more on service of liaison with the fire department between Henrietta Fire Department and her fire district in the town. And I would like to take a second to congratulate and thank Chief Zirinsky, who served both the city of Rochester and the Henrietta town for the past 32 years. And I'd like to thank him for all his service and dedicated service. Thank you.
And
He retired. His last shift was Friday, I understand. I was told.
And so then congratulations to, is it Mark Cholak? who's
Yes.
Taking over as
Yes.
chief. So-
Yep.
So
Look forward to working with him.
Session up, so he retires and the next moves up.
the next Mark moves up, yeah.
You have to be marked to work in the fire department.
Apparently.
At least to be in the line of succession. Yeah, so Mark was the deputy chief or
Okay.
assistant chief or whatever his title was. Yeah, so he's been being groomed to take over for some time.
So all those guys are making their mark?
On that dad joke note, any other,
Congratulations, chief.
Yes,
Happy
congratulations, Chief.
retirement.
And
Thank you.
A son with his
sure-
grandbaby.
So
Sure you-
to age myself, I remember Mark when he was much younger.
Wow.
Our families kind of grew up together, so.
The school district had a lovely presentation that had to do with their multicultural parent advisory committee. They are really focusing on equity and inclusion. And they plan to springboard off of the United Way's 21-day racial equity challenge, which some of us may have participated in. I know that I participated in that. And they're looking to do something Rush Henrietta specific, and want to do like a 10-day racial equity challenge right here for Henrietta. So they're looking to they're doing a lot of professional development and hoping to increase understanding and just consideration in all of the different decisions that they're making. And if that's something that you'd like to participate in, I'd suggest that you keep an eye out on their website. I'm sure that they'll make an announcement and allow the community to participate in that racial justice challenge.
Great.
so tomorrow is the kickoff meeting for the local waterfront revitalization program, or LWRP. We're putting together a plan for, a bunch of improvements to our waterfront. That both includes the Genesee River and the small stretch of the Erie Canal. We received a New York State grant for that. And once that plan is in place, we can then go after funding for any of the projects that are in that plan. So basically the way the LWRP program works is without and again, to be able to go after the money, park funding for that, you have to have essentially the plan designed and drawn up so that it's done as part of a comprehensive solution, not haphazardly.
Is that different than the DASNY grant or is?
Different, yep. So
Okay.
this is going to be for stuff like, we're talking about a river walk. We've been talking about it for a while. That was in the initial proposal. And we actually went in with the town of Rush because the river walk would go all the way from the Kodak facility in the north, all the way to the south to potentially all the way to industry.
Okay.
it's definitely going through the river, the Rush Riverside Refuge. But we were approached by the one of the people on the board at Industry, and they're excited about it because they also think that it would work well for the boys to do a bunch of the brush clearing and stuff like that. They think it would be a great project for them. And there is some, we could get it all the way down to, there's another railroad museum. There's actually 2 railroad museums in that area. But the one all the way down on 251, we might be able to go through some of the industry land to get all the way down there. We're also looking at improvements to Breeze Park, potentially to Riverbend Park, which is where the Riverton Golf Course is, and the Riverton Disc Golf Course is. Potentially looking at a canoe or fishing boat launch or 2 along the river, including up near the Valentine Bridge. And then we were also looking at potentially a boat launch on the, not a boat launch, but like a canoe, kayak type launch on the canal, on our portion of the land there. And then we've also been working with the JCC. A lot of parts of the JCC are in Brighton, but about half of it's in Brighton, half of it's in Henrietta. And the canal portion is in Henrietta. So they've talked about potentially putting in like an ice cream shop right on the canal path. On there, they acquired the parcel, a significant chunk of land to the east of the current JCC, and amongst other things, they were talking about putting in a little canal side park, including like an ice cream stand and stuff like that. So all that stuff will, like I said, we'll kind of bake all those ideas into the plan. And we'll share, there'll be a lot of opportunities for input from the community. In fact, we'll be reaching out to a number of people, including some of those who just applied for the Parks and Rec Board, to be on there's a resident panel to get input from the community. And like I said, there'll be a lot of opportunities for public hearings and ways to get ideas, but very exciting to get some potential, use the waterfront that we've got to our advantage.
I use that canal path often. I ride my bike all summer long, and there is a lot of people use it. I was shocked when I, see how many people over the years it's increased.
Yep.
And something if the JCC would put in there, it'd be great.
Yep.
So happy to hear that.
And I have nothing from the zoning and planning board, but kudos to the new members for the one meeting we've had. And we look for more things to come with all the work we have coming to our town in the new year.
Anything else? And can I get a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Seconded.
Hearing no objection, we will move to executive session. We will adjourn straight from executive session. So at this time, we can end the broadcast of the January 27th